The wind whispered through the tall prairie grass of Iowa, carrying with it the scent of rich earth and the faint hum of progress. John Vincent Atanasoff, a man whose mind was perpetually ablaze with numbers and theories, often found solace in these fields, far from the whirring, clicking mechanical calculators that frustrated him to no end. He was a physicist, yes, but more than that, he was a seeker of efficiency, a quiet revolutionary yearning to tame the beast of complex equations. Born to a Bulgarian immigrant father and a mother who instilled in him a love for mathematics, Atanasoff's childhood was a tapestry woven with curiosity and intellect. At 9, he was already navigating the intricate world of the slide rule, dissecting mathematical concepts that most adults shied away from. This early immersion in the language of numbers wasn't just a pastime, it was a prelude to his destiny. He pursued electrical engineering, then a master's in mathematics, finally culminating in a PhD in theoretical physics from the University of Wisconsin, Madison in 1930. Each degree was a stepping stone, sharpening his resolve to conquer the computational drudgery that plagued scientific endeavor. By the late 1930s, Atanasoff was ensconced at Iowa State College, a professor wrestling with the stubborn reality of calculations. The mechanical marvels of the era, though impressive, were sluggish and prone to error, their gears and levers groaning under the weight of demanding scientific problems. He saw their fundamental flaw: they were analog, reliant on physical representation, inherently imprecise. His mind craved the clean, crisp world of digital, a world of absolute ones and zeros. The frustration simmered, a low, persistent flame, until one bleak December evening in 1937, it erupted. A particularly grueling day in the lab, filled with the clatter of imperfect machines and the gnawing feeling of intellectual stagnation, finally pushed him to the brink. Without a conscious decision, he got into his Ford, the engine sputtering to life, and drove. He drove away from the campus, away from the calculations, away from the weight of the problem. The Iowa landscape blurred outside his window, fields of sleeping cornstalks and bare trees rushing past in the dimming light. He drove for miles, the rhythm of the road a hypnotic hum, until, almost instinctively, he found himself pulling into a roadside tavern in Rock Island, Illinois. The tavern was quiet, dimly lit, a refuge from the winter night. He ordered a bourbon, the warmth spreading through him, a strange calm settling over his agitated mind. And then, as if summoned by the silence and the simple act of being, it happened. The aha moment, as he would later call it. The core principles, elusive for so long, suddenly coalesced with breathtaking clarity, shimmering like the ice on the tavern window. Binary arithmetic, the elegant simplicity of a base, 2 system, perfectly suited for electronic switches, for on and off, for true and false. Regenerative memory, capacitors, he realized, could store data, their fleeting charges periodically refreshed, a continuous dance of information, a memory that wouldn't fade. Logic circuits, vacuum tubes, those delicate glass vessels, could be harnessed to perform logical operations at unimaginable speeds, a leap beyond the clunky mechanics. And, most crucially, a separation of memory and computing functions, the idea that data storage and processing should be distinct entities, laying the silent groundwork for the very architecture of every computer to come. He sat there, the bourbon untouched, as pages from his mental notebook flipped open, each new idea building on the last. The air itself seemed to vibrate with possibilities. He had found the way. Not just a better calculator, but a fundamentally new kind of machine, one that spoke the language of electricity. Returning to Iowa with a renewed sense of purpose, Atanasoff secured a modest grant of $650 from Iowa State College in March 1939, a paltry sum for such a grand vision, yet enough to ignite the flame. He knew he couldn't build this machine alone. He needed a partner, a mind as sharp and dedicated as his own. He found him in Clifford E. Berry, a brilliant graduate student in electrical engineering. Berry, young and eager, possessed the practical ingenuity to translate Atanasoff's theoretical brilliance into tangible form. Together, in the dusty, echoing basement of the physics building, amidst the clatter of tools and the smell of solder, they began to weave the dream into reality. The Atanasoff-Berry computer, or ABC, was taking shape. The ABC was unlike anything seen before. It eschewed the cumbersome gears and levers of its ancestors, embracing the ethereal dance of electrons. Its heart beat with vacuum tubes, glowing softly as they performed calculations at speeds previously unimaginable. Atanasoff and Berry meticulously wired thousands of components, their hands stained with grease, their minds constantly engaged in solving the myriad problems that arose daily. They built a machine that operated entirely in binary, a language of just 2 digits, 0 and 1, perfectly suited for the electronic switches they employed. This was a radical departure from the decimal systems of earlier machines, a testament to Atanasoff's foresight. The ABC also boasted a revolutionary memory system, a pair of rotating drums, each adorned with 1/600 capacitors. These tiny components held the binary data, their charges constantly refreshed, preventing the electrical leakage that could erase precious information. This regenerative memory was the direct ancestor of modern RAM, the very foundation of how our computers remember things today. Their creation, though designed for the specific task of solving systems of linear equations, was a marvel of innovation. It breathed, albeit often imperfectly, with the promise of the digital age. They grappled with the challenges of vacuum tube circuitry and the finicky nature of their input-output system. The paper card writer reader, meant to store intermediate results, proved to be their Achilles heel, its errors a constant source of frustration. Yet, despite these hurdles, by 1942, the ABC was largely operational, a living prototype of a future yet to fully unfold. Then, the world changed. The rumblings of war, which had been distant echoes, now became a thunderous roar. Atanasoff, a man of science, was called to serve. In 1941, he was pulled into critical war work with the Naval Ordnance Laboratory in Washington, D.C. His beloved ABC, left behind in the Iowa basement, its development unfinished, its patent application unfiled, became a silent testament to a vision interrupted. The war, a crucible of necessity, would spark incredible innovation, but for Atanasoff's pioneering work, it meant obscurity. His ideas, however, the precious seeds he had sown, were already out there, scattered by the winds of intellectual exchange. In June 1941, before the war fully consumed Atanasoff's time, a pivotal visitor arrived at Iowa State, John Mauchly, a physicist from the University of Pennsylvania. Mauchly, then working with analog calculators and seeking new solutions for weather data analysis, spent 4 days as Atanasoff's guest. Atanasoff, generous and open in the true spirit of academic collaboration, freely shared every detail of his ABC, its design, its principles, its promise. Mauchly took copious notes, his eyes wide with fascination, seemingly absorbing every flicker of insight. He saw the future in Atanasoff's lab, and he scribbled it down. This visit, seemingly innocuous at the time, would become the fulcrum of a legal battle that would redefine the history of computing. Years passed. The digital age, a fragile seedling in Atanasoff's basement, began to blossom. Computers, once confined to specialized labs, were becoming an industry. And with growth came conflict. Sperry Rand, having acquired the rights to the ENIAC patent, began demanding hefty royalties from other emerging computer manufacturers. This act of corporate muscle flexing ignited a firestorm, leading to a monumental legal battle. Honeywell Inc. v. Sperry Rand Corp. Filed on May 26, 1967. Honeywell, resisting the royalty demands, argued that the ENIAC patent was invalid, claiming that Atanasoff's ABC constituted prior art, meaning Atanasoff's invention predated and influenced the ENIAC-S, thus robbing Mauchly and Eckert's patent of its novelty. The trial was a saga, a legal epic that sprawled across years. From June 1, 1971 to March 13, 1972, the courtroom became a crucible where the history of computing was dissected, debated, and ultimately redefined. 77 witnesses testified, 80 depositions were taken, and over 30,000 exhibits were presented. Letters between Atanasoff and Mauchly, once mere academic correspondence, became crucial evidence, damning Mauchly's claims of independent invention. Mauchly's own words, in a letter dated September 30, 1941, where he mused about combining Atanasoff's methods with his own, proved to be an inescapable web of truth. Finally, on October 19, 1973, after years of painstaking legal maneuvering, U.S. District Judge Earl R. Larson delivered his landmark ruling. In a 248-page decision, dense with legal prose yet crystal clear in its pronouncement, he declared, Eckert and Mauchly did not themselves first invent the automatic electronic digital computer, but instead derived that subject matter from one Dr. Kraz, John Vincent Atanasoff. The ENIAC patent was invalidated. Atanasoff, the quiet physicist from Iowa, was legally recognized as the inventor of the electronic digital computer. Yet, despite this resounding legal victory, John Atanasoff would remain largely an unsung hero for decades. His triumph, though profound, was like a quiet ripple in a vast ocean of public perception. Several currents conspired to keep his light dim. His work, born in the academic halls of Iowa State, a non-elite institution, lacked the commercial backing and grand publicity that propelled the ENIAC. The ABC was a prototype, a foundational dream, not a fully realized commercial product. The enormity of government funding and the wartime necessity that drove the ENIAC's creation ensured its place in the public eye. Then there was the war itself. Atanasoff's forced departure from Iowa halted the ABC's development, leaving it incomplete, preventing its full demonstration and immediate practical application. And the oversight of a patent filing by Iowa State, a seemingly small detail at the time, left his ideas legally vulnerable, allowing them to be derived by others without immediate consequence. Atanasoff himself was no showman. He was a scientist driven by intellectual curiosity, not by the desire for public acclaim. The ENIAC team, on the other hand, enjoyed the full force of public relations, their faces plastered across newspapers and magazines, becoming synonymous with the dawn of the computer age. And finally, the legal victory came decades too late. By 1973, the accepted narrative of computer invention was deeply entrenched in the public consciousness. To compound matters, the news of Judge Larson's decision was largely overshadowed by the Saturday Night Massacre of the Watergate scandal, a political earthquake that consumed headlines and diverted public attention. Atanasoff's quiet vindication was lost in the din of national crisis. Even the fact that the ABC was not a stored program computer in the modern sense, something the ENIAC later achieved, contributed to its perceived lesser status. Even though Atanasoff's fundamental principles were still the bedrock of even these more advanced machines. But the unyielding truth is this: every computer you touch today, every smartphone, every tablet, every server humming in a data center, carries the silent echoes of Atanasoff's genius. His principles, born from a frustrated drive and a bourbon-fueled epiphany, are the very foundation upon which our digital world stands. Binary arithmetic, the elegant dance of O's and ones, the language of all digital systems, a concept Atanasoff championed when others were still clinging to decimal illusions. Regenerative memory, the ingenious idea of refreshing electrical charges to maintain data, a direct precursor to the ubiquitous DRAM in your computer. Every time your computer accesses its memory, it performs a function born in Atanasoff's lab. Electronic switching, the use of vacuum tubes for logical operations, a monumental leap beyond clunky mechanical relays, paving the way for the speed and efficiency we now take for granted. And the separation of memory and computing functions, the clear distinction between where data is stored and where it is processed, a fundamental architectural principle in literally every modern computer. The story of John Atanasoff is more than just a historical footnote. It is a profound lesson in the complex, often messy, and frequently unsung nature of scientific progress. Innovation is rarely a linear march, and credit is not always bestowed upon those who deserve it most, or even on time. Atanasoff's journey highlights the profound importance of intellectual courage, the quiet resilience of a man who persisted despite obscurity, and the enduring necessity of continually re-examining our historical narratives. It is a call to action, a reminder to acknowledge the true architects of our world, to dig deeper than the headlines, and to ensure that all contributors, even the quietest pioneers, receive their rightful and belated place in the annals of human achievement. Remember the quiet man from Iowa, the physicist who drove through a winter night seeking clarity and instead found the very blueprint for the digital age. Remember John Vincent Atanasoff, whose vision truly laid the foundational bricks of the world we inhabit, a world where electrons dance, and ideas, once whispered in a roadside tavern, now shape every aspect of our lives. His legacy is not just in the history books, but in the very machinery that defines our modern existence, a silent testament to a genius finally recognized. The sun sets over the prairie, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the same sky that once witnessed Atanasoff's midnight revelations. The wind continues to whisper, but now, perhaps, it carries not just the scent of rich earth, but also the echoing hum of millions of computers, all speaking the language of binary, all bearing the silent imprint of a forgotten hero. It's a comforting thought, isn't it, that even the most profound truths eventually find their way into the light.